Welcome into Texans Today, everyone. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, a quick rooting guide for all the games going on in Week 12. Who should you be rooting on? Who do you want to lose for the Texans to have the best chances to make the playoffs or maybe even win our division? Also, some injury updates on a few Texans players and somebody who had to get carted off on Thursday Night Football. I'll tell you about all those injury updates at the end of today's show. But before we get going, let's take a look at the AFC playoff picture before we get kicked off on the noon slate. I'm filming this right before the noon games kick off, and currently this is how we sit. Broncos in that number 1 seed. Then it's Patriots, Colts, and Steelers as your division leaders. Then it's the Buffalo Bills, who the Texans just beat on Thursday Night Football, the Chargers, the Jags, and then your Houston Texans, one game out of a playoff spot, followed behind by the Chiefs and the Ravens. Now, my question to you, and it's going to impact how we look at this first game and how we root for this first game. Do you believe the Texans can still win the AFC South? Do you think we can still win this division? Give me a yes, give me a no, and how you answer is going to directly impact who you root for this game. Give me a yes or give me a no down below in the comments section. All right, so if you said yes, if you think the Texans can still win this game, or win the AFC South, then you want the Chiefs to win this matchup between the Colts and Chiefs here in Week 12. If you think the Texans have no shot to win the division at all, if you're like, it's already said and done, the Texans are not winning the AFC South, then you actually want the Indianapolis Colts to win this game to separate you from the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you're an agent of chaos, if you just want all of the madness, craziness going into the final weeks of the season, then maybe you're kind of like me and you want a tie in this game. Hey, people get mad at me at the Chat Sports office saying that I'm un-American, say that I'm awful for rooting for ties here and there, but I don't know, a tie here might go a little crazy. But how you answer that first question, if you think we can still win the division, then you want the Colts to lose. If you think the division's said and done and you're just looking for a wild card spot, then you want the Colts to win this game. Let's go to the next one. This is a much simpler rooting guide for the Texans. Obviously, an AFC team versus an NFC team. We're rooting for the Chicago Bears in this game because that puts another team in the AFC one spot down, gives them another loss, and a Bears win really doesn't affect you at all. It does nothing for this Texans team. So in this game, we're rooting for the Chicago Bears to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next up, another easy one for you. The New York Jets. They're basically already out of the playoff race, right? They have 8 losses up against the Baltimore Ravens, who you do own the head-to-head, but they are nipping at your heels. You don't want them to be close, so obviously we're going to root for the bad team here. We want the New York Jets to win this ball game up against the Ravens. Probably not very likely with Lamar Jackson and all the guys coming back for Baltimore, and the Jets, they're the Jets. So not a likely one, but maybe an upset if the Jets can beat the Ravens in this one. That's who we'll be looking at for this game. I was a little torn, but I'm going to say for Texans fans, we actually want the Patriots to win this game. And I know what you're saying, Jeremy. The Patriots are 9-2. The Bengals are 3-7. Why do you care whether or not the Patriots lose or the Bengals win this game? Well, the Bengals are getting Joe Burrow back, and they have 7 losses already. The Patriots, I think they're on track to win their division, which I would rather, play a AFC East division winner in the Patriots more than play the Bills again. So I'm saying Patriots, root for them to get the dub. The Bengals, they have 8 losses, and that pretty much puts them out of the wild card territory in the AFC, eliminating another team. So I think for the Texans fans out there, you're actually looking for the Patriots to win this game up against the Bengals. In my opinion, that makes the most sense for the Texans moving forward, trying to get either a wild card spot or another spot in particular. I think the Patriots, like I said, already have a good hold on that AFC East, and I'd much rather face the Patriots in round 1 if we do get a wild card spot than the Buffalo Bills. And lastly, a simple game. Obviously, F the Jags. We're rooting for the Cardinals to win this game. They're at 1 game ahead of us in the wild card race right now. The Cardinals, they're in the NFC, so another game where, if the Cardinals win, it really doesn't really do much for you. in this one. So we're all rooting for the Cardinals to beat up on Jacksonville in Week 12. Now, coming up, I have some injury updates on a couple Texans players. Somebody who got carted off of that Thursday night football game. I'll tell you all the injury updates you need to know. But before we get into those, got to tell you about our sponsor over at Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app out there. Guys, the weather, it's a changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Super simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2-player stats. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. And it's the best way to get football action in more than 40 states. Not only football, basketball, hockey, college football as well. Yeah, more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And now I know Thursday night, my lineup didn't necessarily hit. Missed on a couple ones, right? Like Nick Chubb had 16 rushing yards in the first half and didn't get any more past that. Josh Allen, the hook and ladder really screwed me on that one on the 4th and 27. He ended up getting the more on his passing yards, and Nico Collins didn't end up scoring a touchdown. But I had a ton of fun rooting for this all night long, and I'm going to 100% put in a lineup for this next week up against the Colts, and so should you. So go ahead, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Go check out all that information down in the comment section and description of today's show. Big shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Now, coming up, some Texans injury updates that we got to discuss because obviously there's a couple people that we really need to talk about in this program, and some guys that didn't play in that Thursday night football game up against the Indianapolis Colts. First up, C.J. Stroud, trending to play in Week 13. I know people were mad that I made a video even talking about the fact that C.J. Stroud, there's a discussion amongst him and Davis Mills. I mean, you'd be lying to yourself if you weren't saying there's at least a little bit of a discussion, but I'm still on the board with C.J. Stroud. I've said it. I've repeatedly said as soon as he's healthy, I want 7 in the ball game, and I expect C.J. Stroud to be taking snaps under center up against the Colts in Week 13. That's my stance. I'm sticking to it. Also, another guy that is trending to play in Week 13, Jalen Pitre. This guy is somebody who the Texans have missed they've kind of changed up their defensive strategy here and there because they run a 4-2-5, and with Pitre out, they've run a lot of more base 4-3, four down linemen, 3 linebackers, because Pitre, whenever he plays, is kind of like that third linebacker for the Texans team. They'll be very glad to see number 5 back out there. And we also had some drama over the weekend because Ian Rapoport came out with this actually right before Thursday Night Football. He said, sources, Texans running back Joe Mixon is not expected to play this season as he deals with the foot injury from the offseason. Mixon likely remains on the physically unable to perform list through the season. Meanwhile, Houston moved forward with Nick Chubb and Wardy Marks. I made a video on this. I talked about that I said the timetable for Mixon to return was near late December, and I gave you all the reasons why it makes sense for the Texans not to activate him, this, that, and the other. But we got some drama because after I made the video, maybe like an hour or so later, I looked at my timeline, and who responds other than the man himself, Joe Mixon? He quote tweeted Ian Rapoport and said this. Now, I get everyone's looking for splash news and clickbait, but I'm just curious, Ian, how do you know more about me than me? Peter J. Schaefer, which is Mixon's agent, also pretty close with Ian Rapoport. Get your mans, bro. So he literally tags his agent and says, hey, deal with this because Ian Rapoport is lying on my name. Was Ian Rapoport telling the truth? Was Joe Mixon telling the truth? Well, you can debate that down in the comments section. But whatever happens with Joe Mixon, any updates that happen, any injury news that happens with this Texans team, I got you covered. Texans news, when it happens, 100% for free. So that's why you got to hit that subscribe button for daily Texans videos all year long. You know where to go. It's your one-stop shop for Texans news and rumors here at Texans Today. Here, we got another injury, kind of not really update, but kind of news to watch. Look for Jimmie Ward this week. I was told that he was trending in the right direction, wasn't going to be able to play on short notice in that Bills Thursday night game. But as the practice sheet rolls out, as the injury reports throughout the week leading up to that Week 13 game up against the Indianapolis Colts, look for Jimmie Ward to be on that practice sheet and see if he's able to return. I've been told that either Week 13 or Week 14 is a likely return date for one Jimmie Ward. He hasn't played at all this season, and obviously we know he is DeMeco's guy. The first guy that DeMeco Ryans brought to this Texans team after being named the head coach was Jimmie Ward in free agency, so we'll see if he's able to return this week up against Indy. Now, I promised you one last injury update, and this was a somewhat serious one that we thought when it happened. He got carted off from Thursday Night Football. Who am I talking about? Well, of course, I'm talking about the ref, Adrian Hill. We all were extremely worried because he got carted off of that Thursday Night Football matchup. But guys, don't worry. If you have him in your NFL Ref Fantasy League, he will be able to return in a couple weeks. Per Tom Pelissero, referee Adrian Hill, who left Thursday night's game, is believed to have avoided major injury and his Achilles is intact. Sources close to Hill tell the insiders. An accomplished aerospace engineer and an NFL official since 2010, Hill may miss some time, but a return to the season has not been ruled out. So I'll keep you with ref injury updates throughout the league. And if you ever wondered, hey, reffing the NFL, it's not rocket science. It's an aerospace engineer, so maybe it is. Maybe reffing the NFL is akin to rocket science. I don't know. It seems pretty easy to me as I'm watching on my couch every single weekend. But that's all I got for you through this video. If you want more updates on social media, if you just want to hit me up, chop it up, my DMs are open. You can follow me on X at Jeremy Chugs, IG, Texans Today CS, and TikTok at Jeremy Chugs as well. Hit me up. All those links down in the comments section.